Hello and welcome back to another episode of You Want to Do What. Today we've got Sam Winsbury on. He's the founder and CEO of Carogo, the personal branding agency. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. How are we?
Yeah, very well. Thank you. Very well indeed. How are you?
Yes, good, mate. Good. Well, it's a Monday, so we go again. Sam, do you want to jump straight in and tell everyone a bit about what you do?
Yeah, as you said, I'm the founder of a company called Carogo, and we work with a number of founders, CEOs, directors of companies, largely within the UK. We work with some abroad as well. We are looking to go global, and we work with them to improve their personal brands. So focusing quite heavily on how we can frame their reputations in the best way possible based on the expertise and the experience they do have. So that's kind of essentially what we do. In practice, it involves a lot of strategy work with them, posting on social media, a lot of work on LinkedIn, which I think we'll probably discuss, getting them featured in the media, etc. And yeah, working with some really exciting entrepreneurs at the moment. So it's good fun.
It's we were having a quick chat before we came on, and it is so of its time. This is such a good business because personal branding is almost, it's going to take over from business development in my eyes. The whole cold calling thing and cold emailing, I think that's going to start dying out, and people will be going to companies and going to CEOs that they know of because of their reputations, and it's going to get bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's if you're getting onto speaking from kind of a business growth point of view, and there are a number of places that personal branding applies, but if we're speaking purely from a business growth point of view, if you've got a really strong personal brand behind you and a really good online reputation, you're coming onto calls with people that are already convinced of your expertise and already convinced you can help them, right? Whereas if you're cold calling or potentially cold messaging, people don't actually even know who you are when you do that. I think, to be fair, even with cold messaging to a certain extent, if you're messaging people on LinkedIn or emailing them, if you've got a strong personal brand behind you, it just gives you that extra little bit. It gives people a reason to engage with you, right? If they can see that you know what you're talking about and you've got the experience, it's such a good sign for them.
Definitely. So how did this all come about? Where was this idea born?
Yeah, so I actually stumbled into it, in all honesty. I was a student at the time and I was trying to get all sorts of freelance marketing projects, basically random projects, anything I could find, just to kind of, get a little bit of beer money for university and also develop my career a little bit and start planning ahead for when I left. So I started kind of sharing what I was learning and what I was doing on LinkedIn, basically in an attempt to get clients. And then what actually happened through doing that was people started reaching out to me for help with their own personal brands. And they were saying, can you help me make my profile look as good as yours? And can you help me start sharing content on there? So I kind of stumbled into it that way, almost accidentally. I didn't really know what I was doing at the time, but it worked and people were really interested in it. So I coached, consulted a couple of kind of solopreneurs, individual entrepreneurs for a little bit whilst I was at university. And then when I left, the summer that I left was 2020, just when the pandemic hit. So I was due to graduate that summer. I think pandemic hit in March. All of my exams and everything was cancelled. My degree pretty much came to a standstill, just stopped in March. A couple of bits of coursework basically to replace the exams, but nothing like what I would have had. So I had this kind of 6-month period between March and September where I had free time essentially. And I always had a plan and a passion for this, and a plan to start an agency that was more focused on working with kind of CEOs, founders, directors of really exciting companies. So I just thought in that time period, give it a shot. So used kind of the existing client base I had, worked for a couple of people for free, started to build up a name, and then built the agency out of that in the summer of 2020.
Wow. That's pretty cool story to go from, leaving university to building an agency straight off the bat. That, not many people have done that.
Yeah. And, it's kind of testament to personal branding really, because I had a little bit of a name and it wasn't huge at the time, but I had a bit of a reputation already through the work I was doing when I was at university. So the transition was reasonably smooth. Obviously it's never easy starting a business, especially when you're straight out of university during the middle of a pandemic. But because I had a little bit of a name and a little bit of a reputation behind me, it made the whole process a lot smoother, I think.
So we always bang on this podcast about not necessarily personal branding, but building sort of portfolios and showcasing what you're capable of, whether it be on LinkedIn, social media, wherever you want to post it. But what are some of the benefits in your eyes of personal branding, and how can, not just CEOs, people that are maybe looking for jobs, apply those?
Yeah, they're endless, absolutely endless. For just to cover businesses quickly, things like getting new clients, obviously improving brand awareness, retaining customers, even hiring. People want to work for people that they know. You can save thousands in recruiter fees. It's just the benefits are endless for businesses. But also, if you're looking for a job, it's going to put you way ahead of everybody else that's applying, way ahead. Everybody these days is submitting CV, cover letter. It's so difficult to stand out on an A4 sheet of paper, but it's far easier to stand out if you've got a real strong kind of body of work behind you, if you like, over the last 6 months or so, that shows you've got expertise in a certain area, you're really passionate about it, and that you've been going above and beyond to share that online. To an employer, that's just ticking all of the boxes. And even I've employed 2 people full-time, 1 part-time, and that was exactly why I employed both of them, because they had this kind of personal brand behind them that showed that A, they were passionate about what we're doing, and they had interests around what we were doing, but also B, that they took the initiative on themselves to start building that. I think it says a lot about a person if they're kind of taking the initiative to build their own personal brand, and not kind of just settling for submitting a CV once a week, but actually sharing content every single day for 6-12 months. It says a lot about the kind of person you are, and you've kind of got a track record, if you like, of everything they're learning, everything they're looking at. And it's kind of a no-brainer. When we saw that from the 2 people that we ended up hiring, it was a very, very easy decision to hire them.
Wow. So we always say this on the podcast, and it's great to hear it from a founder that, and somebody that specializes in that part of the industry, that's exactly what you want to see. But for people listening and thinking, okay, so I've got to create content, maybe they haven't got work experience. How can you actually go about creating content to showcase your work?
Yeah. So I think the first point of call is to make sure you're passionate about what you're sharing, because if you're passionate about it, it's going to make the whole process of creating it and doing that on a consistent basis, which is really, really important to do. It's going to make that whole process a lot easier, and you're just a lot more likely to do it, right? If you enjoy what you're posting about and what you're sharing. Of course, I appreciate not everyone has not everyone's been running a business for 60 years and has all the experience and all the stories to tell. Completely get that. But what you can do is either speak to other people that have had a little bit of experience, interview them, collaborate with them, get insights from them and share those. You can do your own research into maybe case studies that you found. Pretty much you can post around anything that you're passionate about if you just do your research. You don't necessarily have to have years and years experience to start off with. Just share the things that you're learning day to day, and people will start to get behind it. And you might not get thousands of reactions and thousands of engagement at the start. People might not be all over it at the start, but at least you've got kind of a solid base there for any employers that are looking at you. They can see you've put the work in, essentially. And over time, the engagement, the views, all the kind of metrics that people look at will come, and guaranteed you'll get the position that you want.
Where do you see this kind of personal branding industry going in the next 5 years? Obviously, it looks like a massive opportunity. Do you think it will become a sort of a stable segment of the marketing industry?
Yeah, I think it will. I think it will in some form. There's parts of it that I'm a little bit apprehensive of, because I think they're quite surface level. There's a lot of waffle around personal branding. People do often just say, get a pretty LinkedIn profile, post a couple of times and you've got a personal brand, which simply isn't the case. I think it's a lot deeper than that for a lot of people. We've got to be quite careful about what we do share around personal branding, or it's going to get a bad rep. But in terms of what it actually does for you in practice, what it does for potential employees, people looking for careers, businesses themselves, business owners, the benefits are endless. And I think as those benefits come to light, it will only become more and more important for people, and people start to realize just how powerful it is. That's kind of what our whole content strategy as a company really is about, enlightening people about that, because a lot of people don't realize all of the benefits. So I think once people start to see that, it will become a no-brainer for people. Right now, it's it's almost like a nice to have, people just, it's one of those things that is a little bit further down the list than other marketing activities. But I think over the next couple of years, it's going to keep jumping up and up and up the leaderboard.
So you mentioned you've made a couple of hires. Now, people listening to this thinking, oh, actually, personal branding might be the kind of industry I'd like to go into. What can they do to make themselves stand out to potential employers like yourself, to make you go, oh, actually, yeah, I'd like to get this person in?
Yeah. So first thing is definitely take the initiative, show that you've taken some responsibility for your own kind of career, and show that you can go above and beyond, and not just settle at what everybody else is doing, not just settle at a CV, but go above and beyond that. There's loads of great examples that I've seen of this. I think there was one guy called Nathan Bickerton, I think his name was. This is a great example of it. And he noticed that Stephen Bartlett, most people know Stephen Bartlett, huge name in the industry. He was about to release a book, but he didn't have a Wikipedia page. So this guy, Nathan, who's a great guy, created a Wikipedia page for Stephen Bartlett. And just things like that. He sent it to Stephen Bartlett on Instagram, and I think got a job about 30 minutes later.
Very cool.
Things like that just show, you've gone above and beyond. You've taken the initiative to kind of take control of your own career, and not just settle essentially for a CV and a cover letter, but do something different, basically, is the main thing I'd say.
What's an average day like for somebody working within the personal branding industry?
Yeah, so it varies person to person within the company. I think for our content creators, it's probably most likely what people are doing if they joined the team. They work very closely with the founders and the CEOs of the businesses that we work with to kind of frame their thoughts and frame the experiences and expertise they do have in the best way possible for sites like LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever social media platform it may be. So there's a lot of kind of higher level strategy involved. So working out, right, what do we actually need to be posting in order to get you the reputation that you want? What are the things we need to be covering? How are we going to position you in a certain way, whichever way that might be? So there's an element of kind of overall strategy, and then it's kind of into the nitty gritty of, right, we've got this thought around X topic, or something in the news has just happened in your industry. How can we then cover that and share that in the most engaging, interesting, insightful way possible? And then kind of creating that post, whether it be a text post or editing a video, whatever it may be, and sharing that on social media.
So how do you balance the CEO's personality versus what you actually want to build as a brand?
Yeah, it's a great question, and something that a lot of people will struggle with. There are certain techniques, certain strategies that you kind of need to use really to build a personal brand, but you don't want to lose the personality of the client in that, right? So you don't want to lose the personality and attempt to kind of write a really good post that's structured how a LinkedIn post should, quotation marks, should be.
Yeah.
So it's really important to kind of speak to the clients quite regularly. If we can get video of them, kind of pick up their tone of voice or speak to them often, it kind of helps to make sure we're actually speaking in their voice, and it doesn't sound, in an ideal world, right, people don't realize that somebody else is writing this content for them, right?
Yes.
It should sound just like them, but also be very cleverly written to engage people at the right times in the right way.
So do you think copywriting is an incredibly useful skill to go into this with?
One of the best, I think, in the marketing space in general. In fact, in any space, if you can write great copy, then you can do wonderful things. You can sell a lot, you can get a lot of engagement on social media, you can catch people's attention really easy, you can retain that attention, you can control is a horrible word, control people's attention, kind of frame people's attention towards certain things, right? I think it's one of the most valuable skills you can have as a marketer or anyone in the marketing space.
Apart from copywriting, is there maybe one or two other skills that you think are just so beneficial for going into this or any industry, really?
Yeah, I think there's an element of understanding industries inside out. So we work, pretty much everyone in the team has a background in marketing, and we work with a lot of people in the marketing space, funny enough, agency owners, etc. And we tend to create very good content for them because we kind of know the industry inside out, right? So if you've kind of constantly got your ear to the ground on what's going on, bits of news, and you can react to those quickly and create posts around them, that's incredibly useful. I think more and more people are wanting to consume content that is tied to events that are happening or events that have happened. It's got some kind of significance to it, right? It's not just a post saying 7 Instagram tips to grow your following or something, but it's actually tied to something that's happened, such as I don't know, 7 Instagram tips we learned from the COP26 conference, for example.
Yeah.
That's just a random example I've thought of off the top of my head, but it's relating it to something that's happening right now as we're recording anyway. So if you can kind of keep your ears to the ground in the industry and know an industry inside out, I think that's incredibly valuable.
And what do you think for you working in it is the number one positive you take from working in the industry?
Oh, what a question. On a selfish level, it's actually the people that we work with. And we get direct access to a kind of total, probably hundreds of years worth of experience of business owners that have done incredible things, are doing incredible things, are real leaders in their space. And they pay us to have direct access to their thoughts on a weekly basis. It's brilliant working with the people that we do, and we're all very fortunate to be able to do it.
Wow. That's a good one. About the opposite of that though, what's something that you find difficult working in this industry?
Yeah, great question. I think people's perceptions around it. You have to do a lot of education around what personal branding actually is, what it involves, convincing people that it's not cringeworthy or it's not kind of waffle, but it's actually a really beneficial strategy for them and can help them. People often tell us, I don't need a personal brand, when actually pretty much everyone needs a personal brand and can benefit from having one. So trying to educate people around that is definitely a challenge.
Well, I found this fascinating. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and have a chat. And where can people sort of find you and what your business is up to?
Yeah, so the business you can find over at carogo.co.uk or across all socials. The handle is normally Carogo or official Carogo. And then for me personally, the best place is to check me out on LinkedIn, Sam G Winsbury, or at samwinsbury.co.uk.
Amazing. Thank you again, Sam.
My pleasure. Thanks, Daniel.